I see a few that just popped in. Bill, Chris, Roger are all waiting to get in.
Great. Hi, Yancy. Hi, Bill. I think people can't unmute themselves. Oh, there they go.
There we go.
Shortly.
Hi, Bill.
Hi.
Hi, Roger. Hi, Chris. Welcome. So I think we're good with a quorum now, yes?
It appears so. Yep. I think we're in good shape. So I'm going to go ahead and suggest you go ahead and admit all. Eric can go ahead and start the recording.
Recording in progress.
Excellent. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us, members of the GPAC and members of the public and community. We're just going to wait maybe a couple more seconds here to make sure everyone has a chance to log on, get comfortable before we launch into our presentation. So thanks again so much for joining us. Wait, maybe just 10 more seconds here. Okay. All right, I think we're in a good spot. Hi again, I'm Dave Job with Plan to Place, part of the consultant team. Welcome back to another GPAC meeting. Before we get started, as we traditionally do, I'm going to ask Martine to read this slide, and we're going to open up the Spanish speaking channel or live interpretation in Spanish, and we'll get going. So Martine, over to you.
Thank you, Dave. Hola a todos y a todas. Tengan todos ustedes muy buenas noches. Es la hora ya de dar inicio a la reunión del GPAC. Lo que ustedes tienen enfrente de sus pantallas es una explicación de cómo hacer para acceder al audio en español. Todo lo que usted debe hacer es apretar el botoncito a su mano derecha donde dice interpretación el globo. Ahí se le van a presentar dos opciones. Una es español. Si usted selecciona la opción español, va a poder escucharme a mí hablar de lo que están diciendo todas las presentaciones del día de hoy. Así que los dejo ahí con eso y muchas gracias por estar aquí. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you, Martine. And Eric, if we can go ahead and get that channel set up. Awesome. Excellent. I'm going to hand it over to Heather to get us started.
Great. I will just wanted to welcome everybody. Happy New Year. We're happy to be here to kick this off. This is a jam-packed agenda today with a lot of inspiration, lots of great updates on things that have been going on, and really kind of a monumental step in this process with the vision statement and pillars and guiding principles. So thank you all for being here. And Dave, back to you for roll call.
Great. Thank you, Heather. So yeah, as we typically do, I'm just going to run down the list. If you could please let us know that you are here verbally, to probably be easiest. That would be great. So I'll go down the list here. Dave Alden.
Here.
Excellent. Stephanie. I don't think I saw Stephanie join yet. Phil Boyle. Saw Phil. Is Phil still with us, or did he jump off? Okay, he was there. Aaron?
Here.
Hi, Aaron. Delia Diaz.
Here.
Hi there. Mary Dooley.
Here.
Hi, Mary. Sierra Downey.
Here.
Thanks, Sierra. Jesse. Did we not see Jesse yet? Okay. Allie.
I think she's just coming in.
Is she? Okay. Excellent. Allie Gaylord. No. Allie Yancey.
Here.
Hi, Yancey. Roger.
Here.
Hi, Roger. Ileana.
Present.
Welcome. Roberto.
Here.
Hi, Roberto. Chris.
Here.
Hi, Chris. Bill.
Here.
Welcome, Bill. John Trips.
Here.
Hi, John. Josh.
Present.
Janice.
Here.
Excellent. And last but not least, Bill Wolpert.
Right here.
Excellent. We almost have a full deck. That's
And
great.
I'm here now, Jesse.
Hi, Jesse. Welcome. Excellent. Thank you all. And thank you all again, as always, for taking the time to join us. Just real quick, as you all have seen a million times, just a quick overview of the logistics, how to join, you all experts. Closed captioning is available as always. We do ask that you just stay muted until it's your turn to speak. We appreciate that very much. Obviously, to start your video, members of the public, we'd love to see your faces as well during the public comment sections of the agenda. As always, we're using the hand raised and potentially reactions. Actually, Zoom has recently updated it where the hand raise might also appear in your participant window. For a while, they took it off, but it's there and or in the reactions, most likely in the reactions. So you all are used to that. Please use that to let us know when you'd like to contribute. As always, for technical difficulties, we have Eric available at eroberts@cityofpetaluma.org and Martine, for those that are following along in Spanish, at martine@mrtranslations.org. So as Heather mentioned, we have a fantastic agenda for you all this evening, full of some great updates from the city, members of the Cool Cities Petaluma team, plenty of opportunity for public comment, and most importantly, we really want to get to the discussion about the vision, pillars, and guiding principles. As Heather mentioned, this really is a momentous occasion where these will be foundational elements for everything else moving forward in the general plan. We're really hoping to get your feedback tonight and possible recommendations moving forward. And then, as always, we have an opportunity for final thoughts. So great agenda, lots of great information to share and input to gather from you all. And we'll stay together as a whole group throughout the entire evening. So with that, as we typically do, we're going to open it up for public comment right here from the beginning. If there are any members of the public that would like to speak, if you could please use the hand raise feature that I mentioned earlier, that will give you an opportunity to let us know you'd like to contribute, and Eric will go ahead and unmute you. I don't see any hands raised. Am I missing anything, Eric?
Not seeing any on my end, Dave.
Okay.
Oh, never mind. That's not a hand. Continue.
All right, there will be another opportunity for members of the public to contribute again later in the agenda. So with that, we are going to go ahead and launch right into our first presentation on the Cool Cities Challenge. And I'm going to ask Natasha to take over from here. Welcome, Natasha.
Can I just give Natasha a quick introduction for those that don't know Natasha, maybe don't know the Cool Cities presentation or the Cool Cities program. So we touched on this briefly, I think it was our November meeting, and had some general overview, but really wanted to invite Natasha to come and kind of spread some of her joy and enthusiasm. There was an amazing kickoff that happened last week, and there was a lot of people there, a lot of great energy and excitement. So I want to welcome Natasha. Thank you for coming tonight, and she is going to kind of give an overview just to share that excitement with the group. Natasha.
Thank you so much, Heather. I'm very excited to be here. Yeah, it's been a quite the whirlwind of a week, and as you mentioned, we did our kickoff last week. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. So my name is Natasha Juliana, and I co-chaired the steering committee along with Council Member Delinda Fisher that formed out of the Climate Action Commission's ad hoc committee last summer when the Cool City Challenge's $1 million grant presented itself. So to take advantage of this opportunity, we had to be a city of over 40,000 people with a carbon neutrality goal of 2030. And since we could say yes to both of those criteria, we gathered a steering committee of community members representing the civic, the private, and the public sectors, and we were able to write this winning proposal. We officially launched what is now called Cool Petaluma just last week, as Heather mentioned. And now Petaluma is one of 3 pilot cities for 2022, along with our co-winners, which was Los Angeles and Irvine. So we're playing with some big cities here. And we are going to be the ones that help create the template for the 50 cities that will participate in 2023, after which the program will be rolled out both nationally and internationally, which makes this super exciting because we can literally help set the example for the world. And being the size that we are and the kind of town we are, we're really interested in helping other small towns because there's something particularly magical about towns of our size and our ability to organize quickly. So how does this Cool City Challenge work? So the Cool City Challenge takes a dual approach to addressing the climate crisis by focusing on both bottom up and top down strategies. So David, if you have the community partner slide. Yes, the next one. There we go. So to win this grant, we had to demonstrate we had ample community support to achieve major collective action. So the way they set up the grant, you find 25 community partners that then help you find 200 cool block leaders, they call them, which are just community members who are willing to help gather their neighbors to participate in this program. So the outpouring of support was totally overwhelming, and Petaluma far surpassed the initial requirement. This grassroots initiative actually signed up 300 cool block leaders, which was more than any other city in California, including Los Angeles. In fact, our cool Petaluma, our cool block leaders in Petaluma helped Los Angeles find enough cool block leaders to be able to qualify by calling their friends in LA and asking them to sign up. So a proud moment for our small town. So next slide. The interesting thing about this program is it's sort of like a benevolent pyramid scheme. So it's using this power of this multiplier effect. So we started with 7 steering committee members. We went to 25 community partners. They helped us find these 300 cool block leaders. Those block leaders are starting actually now even to find at least households on their block. So that would be a total of 8 households on a block. So that then 2,400 cool households throughout Petaluma this year. And considering that the average house in Petaluma has 3 people in each resident, that makes for 7,200 people participating in this program by the end of year 1, which is pretty amazing engagement numbers that have actually been coming pretty quickly and easily for us. And so how does that look on the ground? The next slide, please. So this is what we have signed up right now. We didn't require that you be within city limits. We just required that you have a Petaluma address because we do have a nice rural population as well, and we wanted them to be included in this. And this actually only represents about half of the people that have signed up for this year. These are just the people that have actually put a stake in the ground and claimed when they're going to have their start date. So this is only about 150 of them. So this map will double. And if you look at the next slide, you'll see sort of zoomed up on the city. You'll see there's how dense this is right now. And like I said, this is about half of them. And you can see that the west side is more densely populated than the east side as far as volunteers. So our goal in 2022 is to find more volunteers in the neighborhoods that are underrepresented on this map, primarily on the east side. And now that we have officially started, we also have a bilingual coordinator, Yoselin Navarrete, who will help us reach more people as well. So our goal is to bring as many people into this program as we can. So what is this Cool Block program? This is our opportunity to invite the whole community to participate and share in the benefits of a safe, inclusive, and supportive neighborhood while making significant reductions in their environmental impact at the same time. So a few years ago, Los Angeles, San Francisco, and Palo Alto tested this program on a block by block level, but no one has ever done it on a citywide scale. But they had such great success on the block level that's why they've been expanding it. And many of those blocks, we talked to people in those cities, and they tell stories of still going strong and having a united neighborhood that has really helped them through power outages and the pandemic, and really taught them to take care of each other, which is one of the big benefits of this program. So as you see on this slide, what these volunteers and blocks and their neighbors will be participating in a 4.5-month long journey of climate related actions that include, number one, disaster resilience, definitely on everyone's mind now with extended fire seasons and areas of flooding and the pandemic and our potentials for earthquake. So that's a really easy in for people, and probably on a lot of to-do lists, this will help get done. And number two is carbon reduction. So obviously a gigantic concern, something that Petaluma is taking very seriously. And this allows the entire community to participate in that. Number three is water stewardship, also a big priority of the city, especially with the historic drought we've been living through. And so will help communities reduce water consumption on a household basis. And then neighborhood livability, which is very interesting, especially after coming out of or being still in this pandemic era where we've spent a lot more time at home. So we probably understand, I have a heightened awareness of what's working and what's not working in our neighborhoods. And this would include things like more street trees and community gardens and shared tool sheds, all kinds of stuff. And then number five, very importantly, is empowering others. Because in this global challenge, we know that we only win if we all win. And we know that those with the fewest resources will also be the most affected. So this is a very important next step. So if we use our imaginations, we can envision neighborhoods with a high quality of life where we can grow food and share tools and trade services. So where we have convenient transportation choices and we're prepared for emergencies. So what we have been doing, so along with this sort of bottom-up strategy, there's also these big moonshot strategies and encouraging the community to start thinking big. And that's one of using this sort of big, bold imagination to go beyond what is to what could be was part of the grant proposal that we had to write, and also has been part of our community engagement process. So during the kickoff, the Cool Petaluma community kickoff last week, we led a visioning exercise that went like this. So we asked everybody to take a moment to think about what makes your city cool. Whatever city you call home, but most people on this call are in Petaluma here, and use your imagination to think about what would make your city even cooler. Imagine it's the year 2030 and you are traveling across town to meet a friend. In your most ideal vision for this future, what do your streets look like? How are you moving around? How do you feel? What do you hear? What do you smell? And we ask people to be bold and take a moonshot, create your fantasy world. And it was really a fun moment because when people started dropping their ideas in the chat, it just went a mile long. And I just collected this is the slide of the A's. And then the second slide is the B's. So we've got affordable housing, a slower pace of life, free crosstown trolleys, bare feet trails, bartering, riparian trees, and happy fish in the water, bike lanes. Lots of stuff about bike lanes, bike paths to the coast, birdhouses, all kinds of, blocked off streets to cars, all kinds of ideas. And this is just a glimpse of it. It just went on and on and on, and people's imaginations were so beautiful. And really, the interesting thing is most of these things are really doable. This is actually easier than a real moonshot. Like, we know how to make a bike path. This is much easier than going to the moon. So what we need is this vision and the willpower behind it, and the community really seeing this as a potential and going for it. So hopefully by now you're having your own exciting ideas for what Petaluma could be as we embark on this monumental journey towards carbon neutrality. And hopefully you've caught a little bit of the inspiration bug. On this next slide, you can see the word cloud that was created with the final closing sentiments the audience left in the chat. And so this is what we want to help spread, include more voices in. And if this sounds fun to anyone listening tonight, please contact us. We'd love to get you involved. coolpetaluma.org. There are lots of different ways for people to get involved. So thank you so much for having me here tonight. I really appreciate being invited, and I look forward to creating this beautiful Petaluma with you all. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Natasha, and such perfect timing as we're talking about visioning and big picture thinking as we move through this general plan. That was really inspirational. I appreciate that. Heather, did you have some thoughts? I saw you on mute.
No, Jessie has raised her hand though. Just
Oh, hi, Jesse. I saw the clapping. Now I see the raised hands. Well, welcome.
Oh, yeah, thanks. Thanks, Natasha. This is really helpful. I just want to reiterate how exciting this is because I was just we just had a webinar through my nonprofit this week with an expert in disaster recovery planning and recovery and response. And he's on the UN disaster resilient, all this stuff. And his name's Jose Holguin Veras, but so much of disaster resilience and catastrophic events is reliant on strong social networks. And I just think this is a really great framework and engagement, thinking about the block, because in catastrophic, God forbid, but in catastrophic events, like a big earthquake, when we have no internet and no roads and local government is, Heather is dealing with helping her own family. We have to rely on each other. So I just think this is just such a wonderful way for us to really prepare in a way that other cities aren't doing. So kudos to you. This is exciting.
Thank
Yeah,
you, Jesse.
I agree, Jesse. Yeah.
Excellent. Any other thoughts before we move forward with the presentation? Thanks for sharing that, Jesse. That was great. Okay, thank you again, Natasha. I hope you stick around with us if you're interested to see the rest of the presentation. And with that, we're going to move into, oh, I didn't get to show this awesome slide. Sorry about that. That's an awesome one to end on, and another plug for those that want to find out more. So with that, we're going to transition now to project and staff updates. And I believe I'm going to turn it over to Heather and or Ron.
yes, I think I'm going to kick this one off. So we really wanted to take an opportunity. We're trying to do this at each meeting to update the GPAC on other things that might be going on, or other initiatives, things that might be of interest to the GPAC, or will play into the general plan update in one way or the other. So while we didn't have a December general plan advisory committee meeting, there has been a lot going on in the last 2 months since we met. So going to go through a series of slides that touches briefly on some of these initiatives, following up some things to look forward to before we move into our vision statement discussion. So next slide, please, Dave. So kind of building off of your last meeting, the existing condition report. So we took those, what were they, 19, I think, and went to all 13 committees and commissions and received feedback at each of those. We also received feedback from members of the public, feedback that we got through some of the visioning activities that have happened, and took it to the City Council on January 3rd. So City Council reviewed, considered some of the feedback, offered their own feedback on certain things. And so we are in the process of making revisions to those drafts of each existing condition report. And we'll let you know when those drafts are updated and the finals are posted on the website. We will also make sure to let all the people know that who did comment and provide an update through the community e-newsletter that goes out, so that everyone knows those when those have been finalized and are posted on the website. So huge monumental step in this process. So wanted to touch on that. For the next slide, I'm just going to kind of tee this off and then hand it to David to cover these next two slides. But you may recall that in a lot of our engagement that we've done, we did a series of demographic questions. And really the reason we did that is we wanted to see who were we engaging with those activities and who were we not, or what were we falling short of. And we really looked at Petaluma's demographics to give us some guidance on what we thought we should be, who we should be talking to when we're doing this outreach. So two of the areas that were not consistent with the demographics of Petaluma were Latinx and youth. So David and Kelsey Hubbard, who is another member of the staff team working on this, have done a lot to engage, do extra to engage and find different ways to engage with our Latinx community and our youth community. And David is going to run through some of those activities that have happened. David.
Thank you, Heather, and good evening, everyone. So we were able to hold a Latinx focus group in December, working closely with Martin Rivarola, and the efforts that the city has made building up a Latinx focus group. What's up group? So we held the session, and a lot of interesting points came out, as well as some feedback in the What's Up group prior to the session. So one thing that it's really informing is all of what you're going to see today. And what we're doing is continuing to work with the city on a broader strategy to reach the Latinx community through a Spanish language What's Up communications channel. So we're working closely with Martin and with Ingrid at the city, and continuing to think about how we can continue to adapt and tailor our engagement to be accessible and attractive and meeting the Latinx community where they are. So that's things for us to continue to keep in mind. If you have perspectives and want to help us bolster this, have contacts, please continue to share them with us. Moving on to youth engagement, we worked with also kind of put together a strategy for youth engagement through a youth survey for the general plan. Thank you to all the GPAC members who helped us after our October session to just kind of think about what are some strategies, and this was a strategy that we could do at the end of November, and held it open through just a couple of days ago, I think on the 16th. And again, this youth survey brought a lot of different perspectives from youth. Thank you to all of you who shared that around to different community partners along with us. And again, these informed the documents that you have reviewed for tonight. So we're looking forward to welcoming the Youth Commission to a GPAC session, either in February and or March, and continuing to shape our engagement through the alternatives and policy development phase as well. Something that we were looking forward to at the end of January, but was rescheduled to April, was attending LumaCon. As you all know, it's a kind of a great youth-centered event focused on storytelling, comics, and we were going to have a table there, and we will have one in April. So we're going to ask your help to staff that table. So that's something to look forward to. And again, also very open to your perspectives and ideas for youth engagement. Hand it back to you, Heather.
Actually, I think I'm teed up next.
Oh, you're right. Sorry.
Yeah. No, thank you, Heather, David, and special thanks to Natasha for sharing that update with both cities and for all the tremendous amount of work they went behind that. Thank you very much for doing that important grassroots work. Happy New Year, everybody. Great to see you. Hope you enjoyed the holidays, and very happy to be back with you all this month. As Heather noted, we wanted to kind of bring you up to speed on a number of things. Some of those were things that have happened since we last met. And then also we wanted to give you a sense of what's coming up next, so that you know what to look forward to. And also where some of the things we've talked about in the past are going to circle back with the GPAC at upcoming meetings. I'd like to use this roadmap as a point of orientation, in part because it helps us remember where we've been and where we're going, but also because it shows that planning is generally an incremental process, somewhat step by step, each step building on the previous one. We should really celebrate tonight how much progress you've made in a short period of time. And just in the second half of 2021, we did a bulk of the work for both the discovery and the visioning phases of the project. And these are both key foundations for the remaining steps of the planning process. The discovery phase lays the technical foundation for our work, while the visioning phase sets the direction. Heather outlined earlier how we're concluding the discovery phase. Our focus tonight is on getting us to the end of the visioning phase. This is exciting both because so much has been accomplished and because these foundations enable us to really get into the heart of planning, how to align land use, the built environment, and related policies and programs. I know, myself included, many of us have been anxious to get into the strategizing, to get into, okay, so now what should we do? And we're getting closer and closer to that, and especially as we transition now into the third substantive and the fourth major phase of the planning process, the alternatives phase. I'll say more about that alternatives planning process in a minute, but so that you're clear about where we are relative to where we're headed, let me also preview some other next steps. After the alternatives phase, we'll develop a policy framework that articulates goals and policy concepts. That then is the foundation for drafting the actual plan, which includes specific policies and actions. And so while we are going to get to specific actions and strategies, we're not there yet, but it is on the horizon. So we appreciate your continued patience as I work through this process at a pace and at a level of detail appropriate for the entire community to participate and follow along. Again, planning is an incremental process, and though many of us are anxious to get to the strategies, we're headed there, but not quite yet. Next slide, please, Dave. Okay, so Heather and David gave us a highlight and summary of some of what we've done since we last met. I'm going to focus a bit on where we're headed. And there is going to be a lot, and already is a lot going on in 2022. And though the process generally moves along incrementally, there are planning pieces and concurrent but related planning processes that happen at the same time and overlap. During 2021, discovery and visioning phases were largely concurrent, and as we enter 2022, there's at least 5, and there's probably more, related planning processes that will be concurrent and mutually reinforcing. Flood and SLR modeling being done by the city, climate planning, both by the city and obviously, as we just heard, through community initiatives, the housing element for the general plan alternatives phase, as well as fairgrounds engagement. We're still finalizing some of the details and related timing of these efforts, so we can't yet speak to how and when the GPAC and the broader community will be directly involved, but rest assured, the GPAC will continue to play a central role, and we'll use a combination of surveys, focus groups, workshops, area meetings, and other engagement approaches to provide the community in all its diversity lots of opportunity to provide input. In the next few slides, we'll briefly introduce each of these parallel efforts, and we'll take deeper dives at upcoming GPAC meetings. So as you know, Petaluma's CAP, or Climate Action and Adaptation Plan, is part of the General Plan Update contract and project. The intent all along was to ensure that both planning processes remain closely aligned. I was getting particularly excited as Natasha was sharing about the cool cities tonight, because now not only do we have a comprehensive planning going on, a project going on, in parallel to that, we also have a city-driven climate action and adaptation planning process, and then to support that as well, an extensive grassroots effort to do very similar and mutually supporting work. So your CAP has two parts, a GHG mitigation part, which is often referred to as climate action, and a climate adaptation component, which is focused on building the community's resilience to anticipated climate change impacts. Both parts of the CAP will be developed using a robust equity and justice lens. Planning team has met with the CAC, the Climate Action Committee, 3 times to review existing conditions and forecasts and to discuss strategies to achieve the city's 2030 carbon neutrality goal and to prepare the community for climate impacts. Many of you may have participated in those recent meetings in December and January. Likewise, starting with the alternatives phase, the GPAC will be considering climate action and adaptation as they relate to ecological preservation, hazard mitigation, land use, transportation networks, and other topics. Next slide, please. So that's one of the 5 I mentioned. The second one is the housing element for the general plan. We haven't yet talked about this much, but the housing element will be another major focus in the coming months. Petaluma's housing allocation of 1,910 units was finalized in December. And at the same time, we've been moving on 2 tracks. The first is updating the compilation of the city's housing data, which is needed to identify the sites where those 1,900 units can go. And the second track is doing the initial analysis that informs the development of the administrative draft of the housing element, which is really focused ultimately on housing goals, policies, and programs. We'll be discussing the housing element and particularly housing sites during upcoming GPAC meetings. We also referenced the alternatives phase a lot during past meetings, and much of the discovery and visioning work that has been completed has prepared us well for the transition to this phase of the general plan update. At a high level, the purpose of this phase is to select a preferred alternative that defines Petaluma's future growth pattern, land uses, public realm, and transportation network. We do that by developing 3 alternatives or options for achieving Petaluma's vision in a way that is consistent with its guiding principles. We then analyze those alternatives using metrics that serve as proxy indicators for those community goals and values. The GPAC and community will have opportunities to both inform the design of the 3 alternatives that are considered and evaluate them, considering their advantages, disadvantages, and trade-offs. Heather, I think this is where we pass it back to you to cover some of the related city initiatives.
Sure, thank you, Ron. So I think it was at our November meeting, we did have a presentation from our public works staff after the atmospheric river event we had in October. So, one of the things we had touched on is our effort, and this has come up several times during different meetings around the existing conditions report. So I wanted to give a little bit of update. So we are moving forward with updated flood modeling for the city, and that's using the most updated technology for those updated FEMA maps. At the same time, we want to look at sea level rise and the changes in climate and figure out a way to kind of layer those different points of data points so that, yes, perhaps we have the strict application of the FEMA requirements and the floodplain, but we're also looking at the other things that we know are happening, whether that's sea level rise, king tides, increased precipitation, all those different things. So city staff has been working with both West Consulting, who is doing the flood modeling for us, and Sherwood Engineering, who is on the general plan team, and really getting the best experts to talk about creating the model to best show all of those forces at work. So that's what we're doing. We have funding to do that through Zone 2A money. And so staff is working with those consultants on a revised scope to begin that modeling, which will then inform much of the discussion about land uses and housing sites and what our local policies might be related to that data. Next slide, please. We also have kicked off the Fairgrounds Engagement. So obviously the Fairgrounds is approximately a 60-acre city-owned site in the center of our town. It has incredible connection in the community and beyond, and is a key piece of the vision that we're looking at. So there was, I guess it was still this week, Tuesday, the 18th. I can't believe that was just Tuesday. We had a kickoff with a joint meeting of the Fairgrounds Subcommittee and really introduced a concept that is with a nonprofit called Healthy Democracy. And it's looking at creating a lottery selected panel to take in information and come up with recommendations that then ultimately would go back to the Fairgrounds Subcommittee, as well as the City Council ultimately for decision and direction on those recommendations. The concept here is really to have a community-driven process instead of a city-driven process, to make sure that the people on the panel are representative of the community, to engage people that maybe aren't the people that typically get engaged in these type of processes. Some really unique aspects of this concept in terms of compensation for those that are participating, childcare, technology, so really trying to remove those barriers that perhaps keep people from participating. So presented the concept. I think there was something like 280 people at the meeting on Tuesday night. A lot of feedback from the subcommittee, a lot about the details, timeline, who would be on the panel in terms of city residents, outside of city, who would make up the advisory committee that would provide data and information to the panel. So we are looking to refine the details of the design of the process and expect to bring that forward to City Council for the contract with Healthy Democracy in February. So more to come on that. Next slide, please. A few other city-related initiatives that are happening that wanted to just kind of, get on your brains, might be interested in. Citywide goals and priorities. It's that time again, where it provides an opportunity to look at what the direction of the council was, what we have achieved, what came up that we didn't know was going to come up, and we've had to pivot, and looking at an update to those in a special meeting of the City Council, tentatively scheduled for March 14th. We are also looking to do a parking study session, and we are looking to have this be a joint study session with the council, the Planning Commission, and the Bike and Ped Advisory Board. So that is tentatively being targeted for March 28th. Should be a very interesting discussion about what our parking requirements are, what they should be, so that we can achieve some of the goals of the community. We are also working on a crosstown connector workshop, date to be determined, but likely spring of 2022. And we also just got under contract with Fair and Peers to do a sidewalk gap closure inventory. So that's really going to identify the areas in the community where we do have those gaps in our sidewalks that make it more difficult for bike and ped and for people to get around. That will play into the general plan, that'll play into the active transportation master plan that is also being worked on, that will also come into play when we talk about ways to reduce vehicle miles traveled. So those are all big things, exciting things, and all coming to a meeting near you soon. So stay tuned and we will keep you updated on these. Next slide, please.
I think this is where I pick back up.
Okay.
Although I think maybe David will speak to the survey, but I'll cover the other two topics really quick. So also just wanted to quickly follow up on other items that have been on your agenda at recent meetings. So we spent a lot of time as a GPAC, but also invited public input on the areas of discussion, trying to narrow down the parts of the city where people expect land use changes and distinguish them though from the other parts of the city where, yes, the general plan will address improvements and enhancements, but where you don't anticipate significant land use changes. And those were reviewed by the public at the workshop. You discussed them again in November and provided further refinement and guidance. That input has all been incorporated, and we'll revisit those areas of discussion maps at upcoming meetings as we dive into the alternatives process. So those will be one of our initial points of reference and starting points and foundations for that process. Also in the November meeting, we talked about working groups, introduced the concept at a high level, got some of your initial feedback and input, which is invaluable. We're taking kind of a just-in-time approach with those because there's so many concurrent initiatives right now, and some of which the details are still being nailed down. We're fine-tuning the timing of a variety of different activities, the associated engagement, and the related GPAC focus. And so as we do that in just the next couple of weeks, we'll at the same time clarify when and how to best, when to best initiate the working groups and what specifically to focus them on in direct support of the upcoming steps. So stay tuned for more information about that at upcoming meetings. David, do you want to speak to the survey?
Yeah, so we want to know how things are going, and we developed the survey for the GPAC. We've been working together for quite a while now, and we want to hear what's working, what's can be better, basically what your experience is like, and also if you want to reach out to us through email or other modes, we're happy to always sit down with you.
Can I just add to that too? So we are looking to send that survey out to GPAC members next week, and really want to encourage you to, we're reaching out to get suggestions if there's things that you think would really enhance your ability to be productive on this advisory committee. If there are ways that we can support you being ambassadors out in the community, we want to hear that. So the more specifics and ideas you can share with us, the better. If you just say, I don't like it, it's harder to know what to do with that. If you say, I sometimes don't feel like there's enough room for me to share because of these reasons, we can then troubleshoot it better. So I just really want to encourage you to think about it and give us feedback that we can really create action, and we're here to help this be successful for you. So more to come on that.
Great. Thank you all for those really important updates. I wanted to open it up just real quick if there's any questions, clarifying questions or comments from members of GPAC after all that great information that you just heard. Yes, John, feel free to unmute yourself.
Okay, thank you. Huge effort is happening here and lots of initiatives going on. However, I'd like to propose one more little initiative, maybe to follow up. We have some of the lands that we have. The River Park is moving forward. The foundation is moving on that. The Fairgrounds is moving forward. But the other largest open space is around our river, around the outlet mall. And that needs to be another initiative, maybe following once the Fairgrounds is done and the River Park is still moving forward. We also need to create some sort of process, group effort, work with the private landowners around the outlet mall, and figure out where we're going to go with that very large, centrally located open space area right now. That could be all sorts of things can happen. So I'd like to make sure that that's on the list, at least, while we're working on the Fairgrounds and River Park, that those concepts are going to be included for that particular area. So that's just hopefully a follow-up to at least it gets on a list somewhere that this is something we are going to do. Hopefully this group can help maybe work on that. But anyway, that's my comment at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Appreciate that. Yes, Jesse, you're up.
Yeah, I'm just reflecting on the housing element and being such a huge piece of this work, with 1,900 units and citing them and how it's integrate with our climate neutrality goals, which we have 8 years. Are you guys thinking at this point that a subcommittee will be formed to tackle that, or will we tackle it together as a full group every month? It just feels like a big lift. What are
Ron, you wanna-
some
you
thoughts
wanna
on
take that first?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can speak to that quick. Heather may have some other ideas. I think that's an excellent question. And that's exactly what we're thinking through in detail right now, because you're right, absolutely right. And as we are looking at the steps coming forward, what's really neat is because of these things are happening concurrently, they can be mutually informing and reinforcing, right? And so we want to design ourselves and the public engagement in such a way that we're not overtaxing people and then asking them one day about the housing element and a week later about something related but different, and really be strategic in the types of input we get, both for the general public and through the work we do directly to the GPAC. So that's a question we have yet to answer 100%. What I do want to share is that while we've been looking at these concurrent activities together, it became clear that we have a tremendous opportunity before us to be able to do in particular, to be able to do the alternatives analysis and the housing element at the same time, because they raise many of the same issues. They get to the heart of many of the tough choices the community has to make together. And so we're working really hard to be very thoughtful about how we approach that, how we involve people. So great question. That's top of mind for all of us right now.
Okay, great. Thanks, Ron.
Thank you, Jesse. Thanks, Ron. Yes, Janice.
I support what John Shrewds was saying as far as what I'll call the Corona Reach area. I think it's really important that we have a discussion on those lands. And also, I'm just disappointed that a Crosstown Connector workshop is in the spring of 2022 without a date. And yet it's such an important component of the general plan. And it just feel like we have a disadvantage by the council not having that discussion earlier.
My only responses to that is we're working together the information to put together the presentation, to pull all the different departments into the discussion and prepare for it. So understanding it is going to be a important community discussion, and we're doing our best to get that framed up and brought back before the council.
Great. Thank you for that input, Janice. We are now going to transition. I don't see any other hand raised to the core of the conversation here tonight, talking about some of the visioning deliverables that you all received here recently. And I'm going to hand it over to Ron to get us going.
Okay, thank you, Dave. Okay, so we have a lot of work to look forward to in the coming months. But importantly, all of it should be, and critically, it's important that all of it be consistent with the community's vision and draft guiding principles for the general plan. And so that brings us to the main topic for tonight's meeting. As a couple of folks have already said, this is a really exciting moment. During the visioning phase, the GPAC and the public invested a great deal of time and effort to clarify and refine community priorities, goals, values, and principles. I'm going to briefly review with you those steps as a prelude to your consideration of the final draft vision statement and guiding principles that were sent out along with the meeting packet. And we're hoping, and the goal then is to make sure they capture everything we've learned and heard during the vision phase. And part of the reason we're doing this, because we just need to remind ourselves always kind of what the purpose and intent of each of these larger incremental phases of the planning process. Understanding why we're doing these high-level pieces now relative to where we're headed. And so just to reaffirm what the purpose of the vision and guiding principles are, the vision statement is a description of the Petaluma that the community would like to see in the future. When you ask yourself and ask your neighbors what it is you really hope this city becomes 20 to 30 years down the road, what are those key characteristics? Likewise, the guiding principles provide the direction to follow to achieve that vision. Importantly, these are purposefully high level and lacking in specifics. It is not appropriate at this stage to identify specific strategies or to focus on the pragmatic how-to. We know that we're all anxious to get to that. We all have a lot of ideas for what specifically we should do, but that comes at future steps. Before we take those steps, we have to first be clear about what it is we're hoping to achieve and how, and that is the purpose of the vision and guiding. So each element of the GP should be designed to achieve the vision in a manner that's consistent with these principles, and in that way, they help to focus and direct the work that is coming. Yeah, thanks, Dave. So as a reminder, a tremendous amount of public input informed the development of the vision and guiding principles that you're considering tonight. The current general plan does include a set of guiding principles, which were the starting point for our work on those. It does not, however, currently include a vision statement. So starting with that, we then used a survey, listening sessions, area meetings, pop-ups, a workshop, and input from you at several meetings to update and refine the guiding principles and to craft a vision statement. Now is the moment for the GPAC to consider a recommendation to City Council. Next slide. So just be a little more specific, identifying the input that was received from the community that informed these two work products. The GPAC helped revise the guiding principles in the current general plan and draft the pillars of Petaluma. That work was then evaluated by the community during the fall community workshop. In addition, at pop-ups, participants voted for community priorities, which further informed the breadth of the pillars and principles. And then in November, at your last meeting, you used all of that community input to further refine the pillars and principles. The community comments, as well as your guidance at the last meeting, were included in the columns next to your redline version of the guiding principles to show you clearly and transparently how we got to this latest draft. Similar process for the vision statement. At the pop-ups, community members shared what they love about Petaluma and described Petaluma's long-term evolution on a vision wall. In addition, during the visioning workshop, participants created vision headlines that describe Petaluma in 2045. And again, at the November GPAC meeting, you were invited to prepare vision statements based on that community input. And I was thrilled to see that 10 GPAC members submitted proposed drafts. We very much appreciate the time and effort you took. And I was really impressed with the fantastic job you all did of articulating comprehensive and compelling visions for Petaluma in the future. And tonight's attachment it was sent along with you with the agenda and memo includes each of those statements that were submitted by GPAC members and highlighted some of the work that was done with them to come up with the proposed drafts you're considering tonight. Next slide, please, Dave. So yeah, so just briefly to recap, like how we got to what you're considering tonight with the vision statement. As you have seen, there were a variety of lengths, and we even talked about how different communities handle vision statements. Sometimes they're 1 or 2 sentences, sometimes multiple pages, sometimes about mid-length. And so we opted initially for the medium length version, but we then made sure that it incorporated themes from all of the GPAC member vision statements that were submitted. We also found it consistent with the strong sense of community in Petaluma to use we and our and personify, really personalize the vision statement as if the people of Petaluma were really speaking it. We also, as David mentioned, in the interim, since your November meeting, had received the summaries from the initial youth survey and Latinx focus group. And so we checked the work against what we learned through those engagement efforts and made further refinements. And then one thing you should know too, some of the longer vision statements that were shared went into a significant amount of detail in some cases. So what we did is, where some of that detail was not captured in the vision statement, we made sure it was included and reflected in the guiding principles. Likewise, with the pillars, principles, and concepts, we incorporated all of your input and the workshop input from November. Again, added insights from youth and Latinx engagement. As I just mentioned, made sure we captured any threads that were in the vision statements that weren't reflected in the draft vision statement. And then we also should note that sometimes a comment was made in the context of a pillar or guiding principle or vice versa, but it really fit better in another area of the pillars or guiding principles. So while you sometimes may not see some of the comments in the actual guiding principle, for instance, that you commented on, or the GPAC or the community did, we made sure it was incorporated elsewhere in the pillars and guiding principles. And then one final note about specificity. We've talked about this before, but we do try to generally avoid getting overly specific in the strategies, because more work, conversation, analysis is needed to get to that point. And so in some cases where people provided very specific things that should be done, not all of that was included. So that, I think, concludes my review of how we got to the work product that you are considering tonight. Now I'm going to pass it back to Heather, who's going to introduce to you the vision statement before we go to some public comment, before we come back to your discussion and consideration of these draft products.
Thanks, Ron. So I am going to read the vision statement, and I want to encourage people to just like sit back and take it in. Feel free to close your eyes and just listen if you want to. If you want to read along, that's fine. But this is a very important, this is our vision, not how necessarily how we get there, as Ron said, but really like kind of playing off the term Natasha used, the moonshot, let's think big. Let's think of a statement that really is where we want to see ourselves in the coming years. So bear with me. I'm going to read it, and I hope it doesn't put anyone to sleep. I hope everyone enjoys it, and looking forward to the discussion. Petaluma is rooted in the relationship between our people and the land. Our identity evolves from our gratitude for our Miwok heritage, deep agricultural legacy, lively river, and preserved open spaces. We holistically protect our natural landscapes and habitats, both within and outside our community. We sustain a resilient ecosystem for humans, wildlife, and the earth. We are caring and connected. We celebrate our differences by fostering relationships and inclusive spaces for the diverse communities that form Petaluma. Our engaged citizenry and local government ensure equity and justice for all residents. We create space for newcomers seeking refuge, a place to call home, and new opportunity. We embrace unique experiences, lift each other up, and move forward together. We invest in each other. We are a community where children thrive, families are supported, and our elders can age respectfully in place. We support our local businesses that provide jobs and services to our city and region. We provide bountiful housing choices, convenient access to healthy local food, and an educational system that builds leaders. We support all our residents with accessible city services rooted in dignity. Our work and income build wealth for Petaluma and its people, increasing our self-reliance. We relish in our spirited and distinct neighborhoods that enable us to live, work, and play. We enjoy our energetic historic downtown and friendly walkable streets throughout our city. Our parks, bike trails, and walking paths connect people and help keep our residents and the earth healthy. It is safe, easy, and enjoyable to travel across town without a car. We are creative. The arts bring meaning, whimsy, innovation, and imagination to our lives. Our community is filled with vibrant colors, textures, materials, and forms. We foster an arts ecosystem to ensure that our artists have the resources to create and thrive. We are forward-thinking leaders. We are honest about our challenges, work together to find solutions, craft ambitious plans, and take bold action. We have demonstrated to the world that equitable, carbon neutral, regenerative communities and economies are possible. We have adapted to hazards by restoring and leveraging our natural systems, modernizing infrastructure, adjusting patterns of development, and coming together as a community. We are Petaluma. So just letting that sit. I think what we'd like to do is go to public comment to get that input on these the vision statement, the pillars, the guiding principles, before we come back and have a discussion with the GPAC members. You did receive a number of, I think it was 3 written public comments that were sent out and posted on the website. And unless there's anything before we go to public comment, I think that's our next step.
Great. Thank you, Heather. I know I was definitely inspired hearing that. Well done. So this is an opportunity now for members of the public to provide input on the information that you've heard here today, to give members of GPAC additional information to consider as before we come back and discuss the vision statement and guiding principles. So as we've done in the past, if you could please use the hand raise feature if you'd like to provide some public comment, and Eric will go ahead and unmute you. If you are calling in, you can also dial *9 and that will do the same thing. That'll raise your hand. Looks like we do have about 15 to 20 members of the public, so I'll just give you a couple extra seconds here to see if anyone would like to contribute and give us your feedback. I am not seeing any hands raised. Oh, there we go. We've got one. Eric, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you. And Natasha, I've asked you to unmute yourself. You'll need to unmute yourself on your side as well.
Thank you. Yeah, I just want to say, Heather and all of the GPAC and everyone who's worked on this, that obviously I love these sort of very inspiring vision statements. And I think that the emotional component that something like that can create really helps to motivate me as the public, and I think my friends and neighbors and community members to really start to envision this great future that we can create. And I appreciate everything that you just read. I love it, and I look forward to helping create that future together.
Thank you, Natasha. And up next is Susan Kirks, followed by Dwayne. Susan Kirks, I've asked you to unmute yourself. You'll need to also unmute on your end.
Thank you. I sent a written comment in after 4 p.m. today, and I believe Heather was going to distribute it to the members of the committee, and I hope that occurred, and I'd like to ask committee members to read and consider my comments on the vision statement. For me, I am thinking about a future Petaluma, and I think that's what the GPAC is focusing on. And we really need to be inclusive and think about how we create the space for diverse ethnic and racial individuals to feel comfortable and safe to move to Petaluma and to be also to be able to afford a variety of living situations in Petaluma. And it occurred to me that it would be a really good idea to have anyone who was on the ad hoc committee for community safety to ask the committee members of that body to review this type of information and give you feedback. I believe committee member Madrigal was on the committee. I'm not sure who else on the GPAC was on that particular committee, but for me, the we, the us, the our, to be honest, it read like a white self-actualization type of workshop. And I know there's a way to get to being inclusive and considering other viewpoints. And since I'm running out of time, I have a few other things I wrote in my comments, but I'd appreciate it if committee members could read that. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Susan. And up next is Dwayne. Dwayne, I've asked you to unmute. You'll need to do the same on your end.
Thank you very much. One small suggestion is that in the line that states across town without a car. And I would suggest the phrase around town without a car, so as to not make it so much as a, just to emphasize all of the communities' interconnectedness. And second of all, I'm disappointed that it doesn't mention that our community would like to be envisioned as interconnected with other walkable communities by SMART. I think that's an important part of the vision for the future, for our energy future, for global warming. Thank you.
Thank you, Dwayne. I see one more hand up, Taryn Obaid. Taryn, I've asked you to unmute yourself. You'll need to unmute yourself as well.
Hi, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, excuse me, evening, everybody. I was looking at the vision and I really liked it. And it seems to me there's a real key opportunity here that represents all of the good work that's been done today to get us here. But given that this plan is to be in place for 20 years, absolutely needs to be called out specifically to ensure that we're able to keep current. In business, we call this agile. Agility in business is really important when you're competing in high change times, such as we're in right now, right? High social change, high economic change, high technology change, et cetera, et cetera. And that key thing is a really strong, unwavering commitment to listening to the public, but not just listening, acting on the public's input, taking the public's input every step of the way, up front, every milestone, integrating it and testing it, measuring success of the city performance per the public input and the public feedback. In business, that's called customer engagement, and only the business entities that embrace that and adopt it on an ongoing, continual basis, not just quarterly, all the time. Only when they do that are they going to be able to keep up with the changing marketplace and business forces out there. So I'd really like us to do not just talking measurement of city performance per what the public wants, because the public are really smart and have all these great leading edge innovative ideas, but the city doing it in quantifiable ways. Thank you.
Thank you, Taryn. And up next is Barry Busowitz. Barry, I've asked you to unmute yourself.
Hello, everyone. I mostly want to just cheerlead all of you, staff, the consultants, and all of you on the committee. I've looked at the document. I think you've done remarkably detailed and specific and explicit and honest and particular work from your hearts and your heads. And I was going to spare you this, come on, but I heard my mentor, Dwayne, mention that not just crosstown access, but moving around town. I second that. And also the concept of being interconnected with other walkable communities on SMART. I engage in this. You know, I can go to Santa Rosa and walk around. I can take my bike on the SMART train and go to other communities in Sonoma and Wren and walk and be a biker around. I think it's a wonderful thing that really expands our connectedness. So thank you, Dwayne, and thanks to all of you, the committee, staff, and the committee, staff, all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Barry. And it would appear that that is our last hand raised from members of the public. I'll pass it back to Dave.
Great. Thank you, Eric. And again, thank you all members of the public for taking the time to join us as well and your really valuable input. So you all hopefully had a chance to sit with the vision statement. Hopefully you had a chance to read it before Heather read it for you as well, and really kind of think about how it all came together. We're going to get into a discussion here, but just before we do, I just want to take a quick pulse and just see how you all feel currently with the way it reads. We did get some feedback as well. I'd like members to the GPAC to represent verbally if you're comfortable. But before we get into it, just a quick hand raise exercise. Who generally supports the vision statement as it currently stands? If you want to just do a quick hand raise visually using the tools that we have available, however you'd like to do it, just want to get a quick sense. Okay, awesome. Okay, good to see. Thank you. Looks like maybe about half of you. And then I was going to ask who's generally neutral about it, but is there anyone or any one of you that don't like anything about the statement, or is there some? Or I'm sure you have some comments maybe to change it. Anything that really stands out to you that you dislike? Anything? Hand raised there, maybe real quick as well to represent that. Okay, we have a couple. So with that, I know that there was. I just want to just get a quick sense. So it looks like more than half of you might actually like it the way it stands right now, but some might want some minor adjustments or tweaks to the actual vision statement. Ron, do you want to share screen real quick and bring it up again? And the next thing I wanted to do is to ask those that sent in written comments, if you wouldn't mind giving us your quick synopsis of the edits that you would like to see, and then we'll go around the virtual room here and ask for edits as well. What we're going to try to attempt to do here is actually track some of the edits on the screen as we go through the best we can, and then our ultimate goal is to have a formal recommendation from you all to City Council at the end of this meeting, both on the vision statement and on the guiding principles, which we'll get to next. We imagine the vision statement is something that you're seeing really and sitting with for the first time, or the guiding principles you had multiple opportunities. So we really want to provide ample time for this first, and then we'll get to that next. But with that, with a hand raised, any brave soul want to start the conversation and give us a quick sense if you did send in comments of what you'd like to see edited, especially, and for those that just heard from members of the public as well, if there's any edits that you think should be made directly to it. And with that, we're going to start with you, Janice. So please go ahead and unmute yourself.
Thank you. I do have some word changes. Can we just start from the first sentence, I guess? And where it says our people, instead of I think we should put like our beloved river or something about our river and the land, because the river is very important to the community. And I was looking at the next sentence where it's where we say heritage, deep agriculture, legacy, and a living river. It's not a lively river, it's really a living river. And so I think that would be more appropriate. And then where it says we holistically protect and restore, and just remove the word holistically. Then
Sorry,
the next
Janice, I think
sentence.
we might have, I think you might have cut out there for a second. I don't know if it was just
Oh,
on my
okay.
end, but if you could just rip the last sentence that you gave us.
Living, and it's after protect, I would put and restore.
And restore, okay.
And then the next sentence or the next paragraph where it says relationships, I'd say relationships by providing, and then inclusive community, add community after inclusive.
Excellent.
And then our engagement where it says equity and justice, can we add livability?
The second sentence, I think, Ron, ensure equity and justice. You want to add livability there, okay. You know, initially I was going to take this paragraph by paragraph, but you're on a roll, Janice, so let's go
Okay,
ahead and
I'll just finish the whole thing then, that's great. And so then on the third paragraph, where it says our on the very right, I would add after our is economy is self-reliant and localized, with an emphasis on strengthening our natural systems, resiliency, and community. And then just taking the rest of that sentence out. And just ending there. Instead of having work.
And take out that work and income.
Sorry, I missed the end of that. Can you repeat that again? I apologize. Our economy is self-reliant and localized.
And community. Community.
Economy and community?
No, localized and community after localized.
Okay. And then strike.
And then I would just strike the rest of. And then the next sentence, the second after where we relish, and just go down. No, actually, we enjoy an energetic, historic downtown and friendly, beautiful, nature-filled, walkable street. So add beautiful, common, nature-filled. And then when it says our parks, in front of that, put streets, comma, parks. And then the next sentence or paragraph, we foster an environment where crafts and design and economic innovation thrive. Then I would take out the rest of that sentence.
Sorry, can you repeat that again?
Localized community.
I think you got it.
I think you got it.
Okay. Well, I'm missing something there. We foster an environment where the arts ecosystem, or?
Oh, where I would take out, I would put where and take out and then keep art in, keep art in, but add crafts and design and economic innovation thrive. And then take out the rest of that sentence.
I apologize. I lost you. Can you just read slowly the sentence how you'd like it to read?
Crafts and design and economic innovation thrive. And then I would take out where it says ecosystem, that sentence, the rest of it.
I'm sorry, can you start from the beginning of the sentence and read it the way you'd like it to read?
We foster an environment where art, crafts, and design and economic innovation thrive. And then the last paragraph, I would take out the second sentence. And then where it says we have adapted to, I take out hazards, I just put out adapted to climate instead of having hazards there. And then climate change by working with and adding that. Instead of leveraging our natural system, modernizing, I scratched that out. And then a community-driven whole system and natural-based solutions approach to all projects, including infrastructure and development. And then I take out coming together as a community.
Sorry, I lost you after we're adapted to climate. Was it climate change or just climate?
I would just say climate change by working with, add working with in there.
Yep, I got that.
And then I take out leveraging our natural system and modernizing. But I'd add.
So what are we working with? Natural system?
Yeah, and so, yes, we're there. And so in front of the, after modernization, let's see, I put a community-driven whole systems and natural-based solution approach to all projects, including infrastructure and development.
Right, email that to me.
It might be easier on an email. I'm realizing
I can do that.
Yeah, this is super detailed. I appreciate it, Janice. I want to also make sure everyone has an opportunity to contribute. Maybe
I'm just giving you my points, and I'm done with this now.
That's awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much. And maybe it might be easier, unless you all have minor comments to the other sections, just to take it section by section. We'll kind of take it on a case by case basis, but let's see. We'll go to you next, John, and then over to Mary and see what other edits you all would like to add. So you're up, John.
Okay, thank you. I just like to go to the third paragraph. First off, this is very utopian in what we're seeing. So it definitely is moonshot. But I think I've raised concern earlier about making sure that where our wealth is coming from and how our businesses are doing. I think we have a weak statement right now where it says in the third paragraph, we support our local businesses to provide jobs and services. Because we need to get rid of all the transportation that's going to and from our city, 20,000 people a day. So we want to provide jobs for our citizens. So provide jobs for our citizens would be the term. So make sure that we want to provide them for our own citizens if we can. And then at the very end, after that last statement, where it says include build wealth for Petaluma. So I want to add a sentence in there, and a short little sentence. And this is to, we invite, so this is just real short, we invite new businesses and development to join in our vision so that we are proactive. I want us to be proactive in bringing in new businesses and development who are part of this vision, not just welcome them, but actually to go out and invite. Okay, that's the comments I have for the moment.
Excellent. Thank you so much, John. We'll go to Mary next, followed by Chris.
Okay, thank you. At the beginning, I felt that if we maybe redirected the way, reframed the way we acknowledge the Miwok heritage, it may be more, I'm not an expert on this, but more acceptable language. We recognize and acknowledge that Petaluma is on the traditional territory of the Coast Miwok Nation, and the town name is derived from the native people. I know that's a long sentence, but it seems like if we're starting the whole thing out with that, we start with an acknowledgement that Petaluma is on the traditional territory of the Coast Miwok Nation. And then our very name is derived, the town name is derived from the native people. Something to that effect.
I missed a few words in there. I apologize.
From the native people. And then I think we go right into the key that's missing from the draft vision statement, which is what we've achieved because we've set our sights so high. So we say we've demonstrated to the region and the world that equitable, carbon neutral, regenerative communities and economies are possible by being carbon neutral in 2030. So yes, it's a goal that's shared by many different committees in the city, but it's not in our vision statement. And I think if we've achieved this, it should be in our, that's the vision. So let's make the vision what we achieved. So I could say that again. Thought it
Was
should
that
go-
just adding that last piece to that sentence, Mary, or did you want to rewrite that sentence altogether? So we
Is that
have-
already in the, is that already in the draft vision statement? I just reworked it.
I just added that phrase at the end of that sentence. Is that what you had in mind?
It's demonstrated to the world that equitable are possible by being carbon. Oh yes, that's what it was. Yeah, I thought that might want to go to the top, but maybe that's something to be just thought through once other people's comments come in. And then let me see. I think I might have one more at the end as well. I wanted to, in the paragraph that is starts with "We are creative." And this, I'm not sure how this flows with what Janice had suggested, but I think we need to say our community is filled with trees, accessible. I know this is, trust me, it'll all come together. Our community is filled with trees. Okay, accessible open space. It goes over it here in that sentence. It's already, our community is filled with trees, accessible open space, and art, which I believe it says, and art in a variety of colors. I didn't want to make it all be vibrant, there's cool muted colors too, in a variety of colors. And then it skips, where it says we foster an environment where, that's fine, but I think we should add, we foster an environment that promotes beauty, the arts, resilient architecture, and innovative design citywide. And then let me see what the rest of it says.
I think that jives.
Yeah. Maybe that works. Okay, cool.
I think you're all getting a sense of how difficult it is to merge multiple perspectives, but you all are doing a great job. I mean, this is our effort to give you an opportunity to really kind of put your stamp on this, and hopefully we can collectively get to a point where we feel comfortable about this by the end of this evening. So that's great. Thank you so much, Mary. Appreciate your input. Next, we're going to go to Chris, followed by Dave. So Chris, you're up.
All right, thanks. So before I give my changes, just a question about process. So you're hoping that you're gonna get approval of this tonight? Because I work in communications, and when you have things like this, it goes through iterations, there's wordsmithing. I mean, even though I don't have any major problems with it, I feel a little uncomfortable giving a big thumbs up when the changes haven't had a chance to be digested. I also really want to hear from people who aren't happy with this thing, because I'm open to having my mind changed. So I just have a question about, first of all, just process. I mean, maybe we need like a working group that's going to take whatever happens tonight, and then a bunch of us wordsmith it and have it come back. But I'm concerned, and I have questions first.
Yeah, I appreciate that concern, Chris. Definitely there are things kind of changing on the fly here. Our hope was we'd kind of take the pulse again and see how folks felt with the changes that are made, and see if that was applicable to you all to actually take a motion or ask for a motion and move it forward. But I believe there is some flexibility there if we don't get to that point, to come back together again, to make sure that everyone's fully comfortable with it. I'll hand it over to Heather if you had any thoughts to add to that.
No, I would, same. I mean, we would like to move this forward, and move it. It was to go to council, but if this group is not ready to make that formal recommendation, then we can continue that and bring it back at the next meeting. So
and what do you think about like having like a smaller working group like tackle this and then bring it back so that there is input all the way along, so that when it does come back, at least it's had, you know, it's had more input and work on it. Does that make your life more difficult? It just seems like.
I mean, I and Ron, you know, weigh in here if that's the desire of the committee to form a working group, if it feels that way. I mean, I think we're getting some great input, and yes, of course, you need to read it. We will need to read it back over, and I'm sure there'll be some transitions. Anytime you're doing a shared document with track changes, you lose words or things don't flow right, and you want to wordsmith it. So we can do that and bring back, like we've done when we've gotten feedback on the pillars and the guiding principles. If there's a desire by the GPAC to set up a working group, we can coordinate that as well.
Okay, so just I had a few changes on this version. So, and I'm not sure how this works with the other changes, but I wanted to start off with Petaluma is a vibrant river town. I mean, we keep talking about the river is like central to the city, and I don't think that the existing version like punches that up enough. So then in the third sentence in that first paragraph, we holistically celebrate and protect. And then let me know when you're ready for my next one.
Yep, I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, and then in the third paragraph, we are a community where children thrive, families are supported, and our elders flourish as they age in place. I want folks, I think flourish implies respected. It's more for me than being respected. It's really having older adults flourish. And then just overall, like I think the whole statement needs some punching up. Like there's, I mean, like some enthusiasm. It just seems like, yes, I mean, it's heartfelt, but there's not as much a sense of enthusiasm as I would like. And like I say, I think I just would like feedback from a lot of people, and then I think we should take another pass at it personally. But I'm happy to hear from other folks. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Thank you, Chris. Next, we'll go to Dave, followed by Jesse. Dave, you're up.
Thanks, Dave. Just 3 quick comments, 2 of them high level, only 1 detailed. To use an obscure literary reference, I feel a bit like Billy Pilgrim when I read this. I feel unstuck in time. I'm not sure whether this is written in 2025 or 2045. And when I read Petaluma is a vibrant river town rooted in the relationship between our people, that is maybe not completely true today, but hopefully true today. We're not that far from it. But when I get down to it is easy, safe, easy, and enjoyable to travel across town without a car, well, that's not true today. That is something we hope to be true in 2045. So I just sort of find that I feel unstuck about who's really speaking when I read this. So, and I would see dividing it into 2 documents of who we are and where we want to go, or 2 parts of a document. Also, having sat through too many public meetings where one of the quibbles from the public is always, well, if the council had just done what the last general plan called for, we'd be in better shape. I recognize that it isn't possible, even in a 20-year general plan cycle, to do everything we're envisioning here. And I sort of hate to set us up for failure when the people in 25 or 45 are again looking at this saying, well, why didn't you do it? I'd like to see more things like we strive for safe, easy, and enjoyable ways to travel across town rather than indicating that we're absolutely going to get there. Building towns is a process, not a destination. And I think we need to acknowledge some of that need for continual progression. And then getting into a fine detail, generally, I have no problem with what Janice Cater Thompson put out there. But the phrase build wealth got taken out, and that concerns me. Towns should be about building wealth, not for individuals. We don't need a Jeff Bezos here in town, but we need to build community wealth so we can afford the good things we would like, a nicer city hall, more parks. If we don't build community wealth, we don't get those things. I really want those words to come back into a final version. Thank you.
If I could speak to your first comment really quick, Dave, and thank you very much, very thoughtful. I think that's a very accurate read, and there are different ways of doing this, but I guess I just note that part of a vision statement certainly would include aspects of your community that people currently value and cherish, want to preserve and maintain. And so it's not at all surprising to me that in a vision statement that looks 20 to 30 years out, that it would reflect actually some of what you experienced today. So you could totally parse those things, but the approach we took here was to do it in an integrated way.
If I could respond to you quickly, Ron, I'm fine with that. But I think then saying that this is written from the perspective of 2045 would, I think, fix it in the mind of the reader rather than leaving the confusion I was feeling.
Thank you for that, Dave. Okay, so next, and Ron, do you want to highlight build wealth?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, I got distracted.
No problem. Thanks. Excellent. Okay, next we're going to go to Jesse, followed by Bill. Jesse, you're up.
Well, Dave stole so I just want to do a +1 to the idea of bringing build wealth back, because I think community wealth is an incredibly important piece of the equity discussion and really creating a self-reliant, I mean, if you do any work in the equitable economic development space, like this is all about bringing community wealth, genuine, really authentic community wealth into, and, really addressing the lack of generational wealth that Black and Brown communities have been able to build in the United States, in this country. So +1 to bringing that back. I think it's also a mistake to take out modernizing infrastructure, because that is a big piece of the climate resiliency discussion, like microgrids, smart technology that makes our buildings more efficient. This is all piece of the, modernizing infrastructure is this term that kind of encompasses a lot of what we're going to need to do to make sure we can meet our goals in Petaluma. So I would like to bring that back if we can as well. The other thing I'll say, to address the public comment earlier about this feeling like a very white written statement, is in my work in like equity work, is making sure we don't use the term citizen. Instead, we use the term resident, since we have a lot of undocumented people in California, and we really want to make sure that they're included in the future of Petaluma in our definition of community. So I think we just wanted to make sure we're not using citizenry, which is up in the second paragraph, also our engaged citizenry, maybe our engaged residents. Just a piece of the equity discussion. So those are my 3 comments.
Great. Thank you so much, Jesse. And I'm not sure if that modernizing infrastructure is going to be taken out or reworded in some way.
Yeah, I haven't seen the
Janice's-
email from Janice yet, so I'm not sure exactly what she's proposing.
Yeah, Janice, if you wouldn't mind sending us that final sentence, that would be excellent. We'll get that plugged in. Great. Next, we'll go to Bill, followed by Sierra. Bill, you're up.
Thank you. First of all, I think you did a fantastic job sort of synthesizing all the input and conceptualizing it into this statement. I thought it read very well. I do find myself kind of reprocessing with all the changes. So I think I'm in camp with Chris that this is going to need another review at some level, but I'm willing to see where we end up. A couple of just concepts I would like inserted or highlighted a little more. As a member of the city's Historic and Cultural Preservation Committee, I think that our identity also evolves from our historic downtown, maybe not in a prehistoric sense, but certainly historic. So I would like to add that right in there somewhere would be great. Secondly, also the paragraph 4, I guess, about in the third sentence, let's see, add urban forest. So our parks, bike trails, urban forest, and walking paths connect us. And that might be a little abstract, having the forest connect us, but I think it needs to be in there. Maybe Mary covered this earlier. And then lastly, I'm going to apologize in advance, but I can't help it. I think we could have, in addition to this version, we could have an alternate version where we take the first sentence from paragraphs 2 through 7, combine them all into one paragraph, insert it in the middle as a chorus, and then at the end, and then we have the lyrics for an awesome community folk anthem that we could sing in public meeting. Okay, that's all. Thank you.
That sounds like fun. Bill, as long as you're the conductor, you can get us through that. We'll set that up. Thank you for that. Next, we'll go to Sierra, followed by Josh. Sierra, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for that good chuckle, Bill. Yeah, and thank you so much to everyone who wrote this initial statement and then all of these comments. I find myself just like redigesting what I'm seeing here, and I'm really appreciative of a lot of these strengthening changes. Actually, both of the things I was going to say were already said, so I'm super grateful to Jesse, who talked about changing citizens and citizenry to residents, and then super, super grateful to Mary for bringing up the way that the Coast Miwok acknowledgement was phrased, and maybe rephrasing that in a different way. And so I just wanted to add a thought, possibly like another sentence after that acknowledgement sentence. And I don't know how you would word this, but a sentence about like the Petaluma in 2045 that I want to be a part of would, on top of acknowledging this, would also deeply honor the legacy of stewardship, not just ancestral that Coast Miwok people have always done, but continue to do today. And I'm also wondering how, or maybe this has already happened, but what that relationship looks like with actual living Coast Miwok people in and around Petaluma. Like, what are they thinking about such a statement, such a vision for this place? And I don't have the answer to that, so that's something I would be curious about as well. But yeah, thank you so much for all of these really, really good changes.
Thank you, Sierra. Yeah, and it's great to hear you all kind of having some of these collective views, and thanks for reinforcing that too. It's helpful to hear that as we go through this process. Is that sentence that Ron put in there, does that capture, or that Ron is continuing to put in there, does that generally capture what you're hoping for, Sierra?
Yeah. With the end piece, what I haven't captured yet is the idea, part of honoring the legacy is actually, like, I forget how you phrased it exactly, but working with people of the native peoples of this place, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I'm sure you'll continue to wordsmith it better than in this moment. But kind of that idea that this isn't ancient history, this isn't something that happened in the past. This is something that continues today and will continue into the future. So however that might be worded best, I don't have the answer for that, but.
Great, thank you, Sarah, appreciate that. Okay, next we're gonna go to Josh, followed by Ali. Josh, you're up. Welcome.
Thank you. Broadly supportive of what I see here. It's everything in the kitchen sink, and it is utopian, and it's a moonshot. So I like what I see. Supportive of pretty much all the edits that I've seen so far. Underscoring a couple of the things that I've heard. Definitely like this notion of distinguishing between, or maybe shifting from across town to around town. You know, the interconnectedness. I liked that. Not that there's been any pushback on it, but definitely +1. You know, let's focus on residents, not citizens. I also liked the comment on, like, we do need to build up community wealth. And then there's only one edit that I would propose. I'm gonna put a little more in the kitchen sink here. The line, it's the second paragraph, last sentence, we embrace unique experiences. I might insert before unique experiences, each other's cultures. As I read through this, and I thought, like, wow, that's got like everything. I realized that one thing it did not have was an explicit recognition of culture as an aspect of the diversity and that we're embracing. But that's all I've got. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Josh. Appreciate that. Next, we'll go to Ali. Ali, you're up. Welcome.
Hi, everybody. Thank you. Thanks, everyone, for your work on trying to get all of these big ideas into one statement. I really appreciate it, and I will show you how bad at this I am by giving my suggestions. I wanted to comment on the sentence about children, families, and elders. I just wanted to call out families, like the way the sentence is structured, children, families, and the elders. It reminds me, it just seems kind of constricted, and I wanted to say families in whatever form they may take, or something like that, recognizing that people have different family constructs. Okay, so there's that comment. The next sentence that I wanted to jump to is the only place that housing is mentioned, we provide bountiful housing choices. I also wanted to add something about bountiful and varied, maybe. I want to acknowledge that there's a value of socioeconomic diversity in the city, and that having a broad spectrum of housing choices helps support that socioeconomic diversity. I don't know that there's any. Okay, let me know when you're ready to move on.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did were you elaborating on the varied idea, or was that an additional idea you wanted to incorporate?
Sorry, I have 2 screens going on, so I can't. I wanted to incorporate something about socioeconomic diversity, not necessarily right in this sentence. So I don't know if you're keeping notes off to the side, but yes, I am elaborating, and yes, I'd like to just add that somewhere.
Somewhere, not necessarily in that paragraph, or?
That's right. You guys get to pick, and I would love to see a refresh of this sometime when I can digest more of the comments later. Okay. Another thing I would like to comment on is the sentence that says we support all of our residents with accessible city services rooted in dignity. I also wanted to mention something about sustainably growing city services and ensuring there's some kind of fiscal resource to support city services and infrastructure. So again, I don't have an actual wordsmith phrase for that one.
So what's that? So it's one more time, the concept you think is missing there?
Sustainably growing city services.
So from a, you mean financially sustainable, you mean? Or?
Yes. Well, yes, financially sustainable and you know, in an infrastructure sense where, you know, say we are increasing development and we have to increase city services, it needs to be well thought out.
Great. Thank you, Ally.
Okay, and one more
Sure,
conceptual comment, sorry,
Yeah, no
David.
problem.
Okay, the bike trails comment, I would like to say bike lanes because they're not the same as bike trails. And I would like to, I think there was a lot of discussion about in the focus group or the previous meetings about the integrating the east and west sides of town. And I feel like there's that one mention of getting across town around without a car, now it's around town without a car. So I really like the integration of east and west sides. And now I'm done.
Thank you, Ally. Great input. Appreciate that. I definitely want to get us to the guiding principles discussion as well, but I also want to make sure we provide space for everyone in the NC. I see your hand raised. Ileana, Aaron, Roberto, Phil, or Bill. I just want to give you all space as well. And then John will definitely come back to you to provide your input. This is a really critical moment. It sounds like we might need some more time with this, but if you have some thoughts to contribute, it would be great to hear from you as well. So next we're going to go to Yancy.
Hi, thank you. I love what everyone else has added. The one thing, and just reflecting on conversations we've had in the past, especially with like the mapping activities, just highlighting youth. I know we have children in there, but just youth of all ages. I think there was a lack of accessible free spaces for them too. So just making sure that they're just named, and that's all I have to add.
Great, thank you so much, Yancy. And Sierra, love that comment as well. Thanks, Sierra. Yes, Aaron, you're up next. Welcome.
I just didn't want to, I was trying to give space for others to, and it looks beautiful with all this mix up. I think the only thing that I would probably do when we're talking about current times is state the obvious that we're on stolen land. I mean, I know that may seem like a small piece, but it is the biggest part that we play. And here we are talking about a vision statement for a place that is not ours. So at least if we work to acknowledge the parts that we're playing and what we've done, then we might be able to make amends slowly but surely if we keep working at it. So that's my only part right now, because everybody did a really great job of, you know, finite details. And also, I don't edit very well, so thank you for those who can.
Thank you, Aaron. Appreciate that. Yeah, we'll have to give that some additional thought, I think, of how to work in some additional language around that to acknowledge that. So appreciate that. John, you're up next.
Okay, thank you. I've been doing a lot of research in alternate transport, electric and human powered, and much smaller vehicles, and car is not a very good description. So I'd like to take that fourth sentence, fourth paragraph, last sentence. It is safe, easy, and enjoyable to travel. I'd say both across and around town. So start off with, yes, we want to do both across and around. And then take out the words without a car. We need to say a more positive statement than say without a car. And I would change without a car to with human, electric, and hybrid powered transport. And to other cities using SMART, to reiterate what a couple of folks have already said earlier that didn't quite get captured here, using because we need to support SMART and the growth that SMART's going to provide, and all the people that are going to be using SMART in the future. So I want to make sure we use that especially with electric cars and electric transport being dominated. I see a huge change coming with small little scooters, trikes, motorcycles, all sorts of electrified and hybrid with human powered transport happening here in the next 20 years. Lots and lots of companies are getting into the business right now. So we need to help out with that. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for that, John. Josh, I see your hand raised. We'll take one more comment here, and then maybe we could try to transition over to the guiding principles and provide some space for that. And then take another kind of read and pulse at the end before we talk a little bit through next steps. So John, or Josh, excuse me, you're up next. Welcome.
Sorry, did you get the smart, you forgot to get the smart train in there.
Oh yeah, where did you want to see that? So I see that.
So we want to do
well as,
across and around town using, as well as without the human, and then at the very end where it says hybrid transport and to other cities using smart.
oh, got it. Okay, so just move that.
And just have hybrid transport, instead of the period, where it says hybrid transport. No, you need to be at hybrid transport.
No, I think he's moving that piece over to John because you said as well as the neighborhood communities using smart. Is that right?
Using smart, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I think that's what Ron was doing there. Excellent. Okay, a lot to digest here, Josh. You're up.
Yeah, I'll keep this really brief. I just wanted to uplift what Aaron contributed in terms of acknowledging the that we're on stolen land. I think it would feel dishonest to me if we have an acknowledgement of the Coast Miwok without incorporating a little bit of the reality of what that relationship is. But this is all fantastic. Thank you.
Ron, maybe making that note where we say we acknowledge, maybe we say we acknowledge that we are on stolen land. Something, put a little placeholder in there, and it will take some wordsmithing to figure out exactly how to work that in, but I don't want to lose that comment.
Great. Yeah, thanks for reiterating that. I think Ron just put it there before territory, and we can go back and take another look at that as well to see how that plays out. Okay, that was fantastic. Thank you so much for going through that adventure with us and providing us that great feedback. That was really helpful. And again, reiterates how important of a stage this is and how vital it is to try to get this right with all this great perspective concurrently. So now, Ron, would you like to bring up the guiding principles? So you all have seen this piece many times before, the pillars and guiding principles and concepts, but we wanted to give you maybe just one last final pass at it, because this is comprehensively with the vision statement going to be this kind of visioning structure that's going to be then recommended at some point to City Council, if not here tonight. So we wanted an opportunity to kind of take this holistically, and Ron is kind of taking us down to the spreadsheet that you all have seen, and we went through a couple iterations with you all to help, again, kind of wordsmith and characterize this the way that you wanted to see it. And now we have kind of that final product that is a comprehensive view of all that feedback to get your feedback on. And Ron, is there anything I'm missing there? Is that a good representation?
Yeah, I was just going to emphasize, GPAC's, unlike the vision statement, seen these many times before. And part of the reason we presented it this way in the table was you could clearly see and check to confirm that all the input we received from the community and that you, the guidance you provided at the last meeting was actually reflected somehow in the track changes. So our hope was that before the meeting, you'll look this over, assess whether it's captured correctly, and at this point, it's like minimal fine tuning, hopefully, and that we can maybe come to some agreement on this and then focus moving forward on the vision statement. That's kind of our hope, but obviously open to additional thoughts and comments and suggested revisions.
Great. So Ron, did you want to take it one? Yeah, go back to the beginning.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, no, thank you for that context as well. So who would like to start here? Great, I see some hand raised. Aaron, welcome. We'll start with you.
Sorry, I'm gonna backtrack just real quick and just put a comment in.
Sure.
So I want to acknowledge also the uncomfortableness that everybody might have felt, because they're like, oh, we're gonna have to wordsmith this. But that is the society we live in, where us as white people want to diminish that statement. So I just want you to think about it hard, because it's not an insult. It's not a negative thing to just say a fact about our history. So just a reminder to be very strong in how you want to show us in this vision. And is it going to be truthful and honest as we can be? So let's try not to whitewash it again and again and again. And be honest. It's okay. We can be uncomfortable. We need to sit with that too.
Appreciate that reminder, Erin. Thank you. Thanks for that. Okay, so looking at these pillars and guiding principles, it looks like both bills have their hand raised. Bill Wolport, we haven't heard from you yet, so I'm going to start with you, and then we'll go to Bill Reinhardt. You should be able to unmute yourself there. There you go.
I don't have a specific comment on these principles or the pillars, but I was curious just about the overall process. When we get to the point of developing the policies and implementing these guiding principles, and I'm just thinking if we come to a specific idea that implements something that is felt to be critically important, but it's not specifically mentioned in our vision or our guiding principles, do we go back and change the guiding principles, or is that policy just not included? Does this work from the bottom up as well as from the top down?
That's a fantastic question, Bill. We talked about that actually a lot before this meeting. I'll let Rod take a crack at that.
Yeah, it is a great question. I think obviously each case is unique, and so I think I trust that the community, with your leadership in the GPAC, you'd be able to find the right path. I guess what I'd like to suggest is that there would be the flexibility you're suggesting. One way to think about this moment in time is, what we're trying to do here is capture accurately everything we've heard from the community so far, right? Now, that being said, in a big picture sense, the vision, guiding principles, and pillars really won't be final until they're part of the general plan that gets adopted by the city council. So from that perspective, I wouldn't be surprised if there were further refinements to some of this language as we move forward. Now, that I balance that, I guess, with what I think is at the heart of your comment is we do this because we want to provide some direction and guidance. And I would be thoughtful and cautious about doing things or adding policies or strategies that were, obviously in conflict with principles. But I wouldn't discount it without conversation and consideration, right? So, it's a bit of a balance here, and there's not like a black and white answer to your question. But I just share those thoughts for some context.
Well, and I'm just thinking that maybe this isn't the time to get super specific about the draft vision and these pillars, but have them give us a direction, but maybe we're just wordsmithing this ad nauseum when it could change later on when we get back to implementing them. That's all.
Valid point, Bill. Valid point. Yeah, I guess it's as we kind of characterize this typically, this is kind of a starting point, like a foundational element, so that we can get to the next stage of thinking about alternatives. But there's often like reiteration as we kind of uncover new ideas down the road. So back to Ron's point of flexibility, I think it would be valuable to leave that flexibility in there. But to your point as well, it makes sense to at some point stop the wordsmithing and get to the next stage once we all feel comfortable that we're generally kind of at a point that makes sense. So really good point. So was that your only comment there, Bill? Anything else you'd like to provide?
I guess I have one other comment.
Sure.
With all due respect to the Miwok and everyone else who's lived on this land before we ever got here, I just feel like when we identify one particular group, number one, I want to know who's the authority on this. And second, what about the other people whose lands have been taken over history? The Japanese whose farms were taken during World War II. I mean, how far back do we want to go? And how does our, other than acknowledging that happened, but is the general plan the place to acknowledge that? This is a planning document, and I don't know what thoughts are being given going forward. Are we talking about reparations? Is there another agenda here for correcting those, or are we just trying to acknowledge it? Because I'm wondering now, who are we excluding if this is the route that we want to take? That's my only comment.
Thank you for that, Bill. Yeah, that definitely gives us more food for thought as we kind of continue to navigate this process with the vision statement and the general plan in general. Thank you for that. Okay, I think I'm going to ask if there are any comments related to the pillars and principles as well. Bill and Mary and Jesse, I see your hand raised. Bill, we'll go ahead and start with you.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I guess I have to apologize. I realize we've seen this before and we've been through it, and you provided the matrix of how we got to here, but I have quite a list of recommendations that I would like to at least be considered, but I'm wondering if there's some way I can do it without torturing the whole committee and reading my entire list.
Yeah, if you'd like to email that in, that might be a great start. It sounds like we're going to probably revisit both of these pieces before we make a recommendation. So that would be an opportunity for you to send in your edits that we'll share with the entire team.
Okay.
Before we come back together. Yeah, I mean, do you want to give us a quick high level before then, or do you want to leave it at that?
Well, I went through the final draft, and it's mostly just adds of concepts that I think are not adequately addressed, and also some elaboration. So I don't disagree with any of it. I think some of it could be reinforced, and I think there's some concepts that are omitted. So I'd be happy to just send this in, and but it's just my opinion though, so I wouldn't want it to be included in the final draft without the committee having another crack at it.
Yeah, no, everyone will have definitely an opportunity to take a look at your edits and weigh in as well. So please do email them in, and we'll take it from there. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Okay, next we'll go to Mary, followed by Jesse.
Okay, thank you. For the pillars, I have a strong sense that there should only be 3, and that's because equity, diversity, and inclusivity, which is listed as equity and justice, seems to cover the participatory decision-making and transparency of government. And I'm pretty sure this was discussed before in another meeting, but I can't remember why it never got combined and why it's its own element. It's like, is this the pillar of our general plan, or is this just an important aspect of equity and justice? To me, it seems like in an equitable and just community, you would obviously have participatory decision-making and transparency of government. So that's why I think those two should be combined. And that's really the main point there. And I know there's no actual numbering system of these plan pillars, but I really feel strongly that, I have one other thing to say about this, that carbon neutrality, resilience, and sustainability should be the first thing that we read when we both go through these pillars. And so that's a second comment. And then the third comment is Consideration for changing, am I going too fast?
No, I just forgot to hit return.
And I will send these in. So this is really for the group to hear, and I will send these in as well. That the, I'm kind of wait for you to get over there. Oh, community character might be better identified as geographic context, because community character, I don't know, it sounds like something fleeting, and geographic context is so much about the climate, the soil, the vegetation, man's response to such, the human and physical characteristics of the place. I mean, these are sort of definitions of geographic context. So I just thought it might be a more powerful and very unique to Petaluma way to describe that that pillar. So that was my only comment there.
Thank you, Mary. Appreciate that. And definitely do feel free to email us any other specific comments, and we'll make sure to send that around to the group.
Before I close, I
sure.
wanted to say what, similar to what Bill Reinhardt had said, there's a lot, I had a lot of comments, and I actually felt that by the end of the review, instead of 17 guiding principles, it seemed like we really only needed 10 because there was a lot of sort of overlap. And so I'm not going to lay that on everybody now, but I just don't, I'm not sure there's a benefit to having more if they're all sort of some of them are sub topics or very close cousins of another guiding principle. So I was going to send that also to, forward this to however we do that to the group.
That would be great. Appreciate that. Yeah, always good to see ways to kind of simplify and make this a little bit easier to kind of comprehend. So I appreciate any thoughts you have there as well. So please do send those along. Thank you.
And it doesn't eliminate the input. It just consolidates and regroups. That's all. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Mary. Jesse, welcome.
Thanks. Two comments. One is I'm hoping we can use the vision, the draft pillars to reiterate the the Petaluma's climate plan, which I know is in there, but maybe stating achieve carbon neutrality by 2030, because we do have this other plan. It has been ratified. It has been approved. It is an unbelievable, very difficult goal. But if we're using this as a North Star moonshot, I think we need to have the plans support each other. So just as a way to kind of try to another piece of the puzzle to get there. The other thing I would say is I'm a little concerned, but in the guiding principles, I just started thinking about this today. So is using, if you scroll down, there's making downtown the center of civic life very much ignores the east side. And I think, especially the work that I know the city council have done with the ULI panel, reimagining the shopping centers. And I think if we're really going to achieve both our equity and our climate goals, we need to think about creating, kind of reimagining what the center of civic life could be on the east side as well. So not prioritizing the west side over the east side. So maybe we need to add something like enhance downtown something to balance the language. Having some kind of center of civic life on the east side as well, I think is important, with a vibrant mixed, vibrant mixed use communities and neighborhoods. I'm just thinking about this, so I don't have the perfect language, but thanks, you guys. That's it.
Great, thank you, Jesse. I look like Mary was seconding both those thoughts as well, so we'll take another look at that. Appreciate that. Yes, Janice, welcome.
I just have some wordsmithing, so I'll go ahead and just send that in, but I want to follow up with what Jesse just said. When I was doing the mapping with a group, for the redistricting, we really looked at the importance of connecting the Lagunitas area, with downtown, because it's connection with the SMART train. And so there really is a connection to, like, on the Griffo Distillery, in those areas, to downtown. And so I appreciate your comments and would like to see something like that incorporated.
Great, thank you, Janice. And Jesse, I don't know if I accidentally re-raised your hand when I was trying to lower it, but you have another thought.
No, I'm done. I'm good.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, well, we're now reached the point where we had hoped and envisioned having some type of motion or recommendation, but I think we've heard you fairly clearly that you would like a chance to sit with this, with the revisions that have been made, both to the vision statement and other edits that are going to be coming through to the pillars and guiding principles. So I don't know if that makes sense to ask for a motion. Heather, Ron, agreed on that point?
I think that we had a lot of modifications to the vision statement. So it seems to me like we need to look back through it and have a draft that everyone can read through before there's a formal motion on it. I mean, maybe a thumbs up if GPAC members are kind of agreeing with that concept, but I'm seeing heads nod, thumbs up. Yeah. Okay. And I just wanted to respond to Aaron. My reference to wordsmithing around that comment was not the intent of it. It was, I hadn't seen it be put in, and I wanted to make sure, if nothing else, it was just put in as a placeholder. So definitely was not to diminish the comment. It was just figuring out where it was in. So just for clarification and clearing that air.
And I would just quickly add to supplement what Heather was saying about needing to digest the comments. Having been down this road several times, the other piece that needs to be done at this point is just kind of making sure the details and the whole fit together still, because when you look at this type of material, especially of this length and breadth, you need to be mindful of redundancies, things that may have been mentioned elsewhere but may fit better somewhere else. So you just need to think about it as a whole once you've kind of thought through some specific revisions. So there is additional thought and work that is required. One other quick thought on process. These were fantastic thoughts and feedback, and obviously it needs more work. I just want to make sure we balance that with the other work we have before us. And I'm not an economist, but there's a handful of economic phrases that I really love, and one of them is opportunity costs. I fear a bit about the opportunity costs of too much more time spent on this, because it will mean in practice that we have less time to focus on other things, and we really would like to keep the process moving forward. And as we highlighted earlier, there are some very important things going on that really merit your attention and discussion. And so I just want to make sure we have a game plan for coming to closure, because there's another thing about this sort of process is there's always something new another further refinement you can make, right? And so while I hate this phrase because I'm a perfectionist by nature, we got to remember not to allow the perfect to be the enemy of the good, right? So we need to get to a point where this truly reflects what people have said and want to, and reflects what people want to see for the future. But there's a point at which, you know, we need to decide to agree on that this is really good and great and perfect for this moment in time, and move forward.
Great, thank you for that, Ron. And we did have, as we typically do, as a moment of final thoughts for you all, and I see a few hands raised, so why don't we do that now before we wrap up? So Jesse, Bill, and Chris, I see your hand raised. Jesse, you're up.
Yeah, Ron, completely understand that. And I think also this group loves to get into the weeds piece of it. So I agree. Is there a way to edit what we did, the messiness of the wording we did tonight with the editing, and then we could vote by email or like a quick poll, so we don't have to spend time on this next month, and we can stick with the 3-year plan, getting all this done. I mean, there's a lot to do, so I respect that, and I understand how hard this job is for you guys. So I would be fine with doing like a poll email. Here's the words, here's the editing we did from our last meeting, just throwing that out there instead of spending another next month on this.
I think we might run into some Brown Act issues there, but I'll let Ron or Heather respond to that.
I was hearing the city attorney in my ear.
Well, but part of what Jesse's proposing is possible, right? And I'm seeing a few different paths. One is the one Chris recommended earlier, where maybe a small group of people come together and produce that next draft. Then we could actually get that to you sooner rather than later, so the folks have time to digest it, provide us their comment in advance so that we're as prepared as we possibly could be at the next meeting to bring it to closure.
But the ultimate formal recommendation and vote will need to happen at a meeting.
Great suggestion, though. Yeah, I mean, just to pick up efficiency, and I like the way you just phrased that, Ron. And hopefully you all are comfortable with that approach as well. Chris, I see your hand raised, and we'll go to John next. Oh, I think you might have muted Chris. There we go.
So first of all, I just want to say I totally understand if staff wants to go out for heavy drinks after this. You have my full permission to do whatever is necessary after this. Oh my gosh, it's a huge group, so I understand the difficulty. What might make sense is for staff to do like a next iteration, send it around. If there's an understanding, like what Bill suggested, that as we go through this process, we can revisit it, and because I think there will be changes, and maybe it can go to council as, you know, our first draft or something like that, that shows that we're making progress and that we all are sort of on the same page. At the same time, I'm happy to help in any way I can, but I'm just realizing what a mess, a good mess. It's not a bad mess, but it's a good mess that this whole process is. And yeah, I want to keep it moving. I don't want this to stall anything. So if we can figure out a way to be both moving forward and remaining flexible on the back end, I think that would be great. So enjoy drinking. Really.
I appreciate that, Chris. Yeah, and thank you so much for volunteering to give us more of your time regardless. But yeah, I think efficiency here be the path that we're on, and as Ron mentioned earlier, could be a good approach. So thank you for that. So next we'll go to John, followed by Dave.
Yeah, thank you. I'm also the chair of the tree committee and also participating in relief, and there's some plantings that are going to be coming up that we're going to be doing, lots of work with trees and urban forestry, which is a big part of our coming vision. And so I got motivated, and so my new initiative as chair of the tree advisory committee is to start the process of reviewing tree ordinances, which we know need to change to protect trees. It's going to be a very long and difficult process to get through all that. And some of the changes I'm proposing is going to try to protect all trees, even on private land in some way or fashion that some other cities are doing. I'm going to need some help. I'm going to need lots of public opinion and gathering and support to go through this process and to see what ordinances we want to change, because we have that coming up, our policy changes that we're going to be reviewing. And that's going to be a major section of change that I see coming. So as we're over the next couple of months, if you're interested in helping me work on these policy changes around the tree ordinances and protecting more trees and like, I would like you to contact me, and because I'm going to be making a subcommittee, an ad hoc committee with the tree committee and working on that project. So I'm asking for some help here in reaching out to the community and getting some public opinion as to how far can we really go to protect all of our trees. So that's what I just want to get out to you and ask your help. Thank you.
Great pitch, John. Thank you. And you all know how to get a hold of John to volunteer some time and to support that effort. Thank you for that. So Dave, we're going to go to you next, and then I think we'll do a short wrap and send you all on your way. So Dave, welcome.
Very good. Thank you. Well, as most of you know, I'm involved with Petaluma Urban Chat. We have had a great string of success recently in lining up speakers. We have got 5 really good programs coming up. David will be sending out an email tomorrow with more details, but I just want to mention next week's Week from the Night speaker out of Minnesota with Strong Towns. It's a theory about, not a theory, I think it's a good observations about how the land use practices we began implementing after World War II are leading us inexorably toward failure, financial failure, societal failure. It's really a very scary thing he puts forth, but he does it in a very nice way. We'll be listening to him a week from the night. When I listened to the conversation this evening, I realized how much of what we talk about in the general plan is fixing problems rather than truly understanding why those problems occurred. So I hope to see a lot of your faces a week from the night. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Sounds super interesting. Thank you for letting us know about that. Okay, we're right at 9 o'clock here, about a minute over. Ron, did you want to? Yes.
Sorry, no, thank you, Dave. I love the work you guys are doing. And just quickly, I haven't, even myself, I haven't yet got my head around really how this all might come together with the feedback tonight. I can see a scenario where it would be helpful before sending it out to the whole group to check in quickly with a smaller group of GPAC members. So if it's okay, Chris volunteered already. Are there others who would be interested and willing, not too large a group, so there's nothing worse than group editing, who would be willing to help work with staff to make sure we get the next iteration as close to great as possible? All right, so great. So I'm seeing more hands than I can count right now. So
yeah, it looks like Dave, Mary, Janice, Bill Reinhardt, Josh, and Jesse. That looks like a nice small group. Thank you.
Okay, I will apologize in advance because we are going to have to do this quickly. I'll apologize in advance if we're not able to find like the perfect time when everyone can get together. But at a minimum, we'll try to do some stuff virtually or asynchronously as a small group.
That's what Google Docs are for.
Yep. Thank
you. Excellent. Thank you all. Thank you for that, Ron. Great suggestion. Okay, I think we are ready to send you all on your way. Heather, any final thoughts before we end this evening?
Thank you. That was a great exercise. Lots of great additions and modifications, and looking forward to getting this initial vision statement across the finish line. Have a wonderful month. See you next month.
Excellent. Thank you all. Have a great evening. Good to see you.
Recording stopped.